not just the happiness in this lifetime, but also the future. That's usually the practices that we went through. So, okay, relying on a spiritual teacher, that's a little different. We spoke about that briefly. But then appreciating our precious human rebirth, knowing that this life could end any time, karma, and refuge. So those topics we went through here according to the book, and they are meant to encourage us to also look at the future. So if there are future lives, well, if we want to experience the same leisures, the same opportunities, the same freedoms we have in this lifetime, there's a way to work towards it, but we need to want to work towards it, right? I mean, we're the only ones who can guarantee or can work towards a positive future. Therefore, we need to have the wish to do so, right? With anything. I mean, if you want to become a doctor, well, in order to become a doctor, you need to want to become a doctor. So there needs to be the wish first, and that is what is generated here. But this is actually from the point of view of a person of initial aspiration or a smaller aspiration. But when we take it from the point of view of a middling aspiration, there's you take it from there. So it's actually a development, a kind of development that if one starts off with that, when one is ready, one may take it to a different level, aspiring not just towards a happier future, but actually understanding that our situation right now is so limiting that having this mind and body, I mean, even if we don't have problems right now, they could arise anytime. And worst of all, and this is how His Holiness in particular describes it here, we have very little control, right? We don't know what's going to happen physically. Anytime, anything could happen. Likewise, mentally, we may feel very peaceful and happy right now, but who knows, we get depressed starting from tomorrow. I mean, there's no guarantee that we will stay as happy, relatively happy as we are right now. So that describes a situation, well, which is expressed by way of talking about what's called the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so they're just 4 facts, and again, you need to see whether those are facts. You start off with like doubt. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, let's see. And then possibly you may believe that they're facts, and then again you need to come to understand that those are facts. Okay, so there's steps to that. But of course it's up to you. I'm just saying that would be the procedure, but let's hear. Right? So the first one is life is suffering. Now, it sounds terrible. That's, of course, not literally what is meant here. It just means that, well, first of all, let's just look at our own lives. There's so many problems and difficulties. So we may choose to ignore it, but actually there are a lot of problems. So to at least give them some thought. I mean, we talked about birth, right? Birth. Okay, so you said, yes, actually the baby in the womb, it's the best for the baby. I totally agree. It's perfect. The womb is perfectly organized, you know. It's like the liquid around and, you know, the position, all that is good. But I would not want to be in such a space even for 5 minutes. Right now, if I think about it, it's pretty claustrophobic. And you're like in that state for so long. So like, I don't know, the bigger you grow, the more confined it is. But honestly, I don't think being in a mother's womb is fun. I would, now if I were this baby and I'd be in this womb, I would find that scary. Upside down, in a dark space, in liquid, in someone's liquid. I don't even know that person yet. It kind of seems a little, it's difficult, I guess.
Did you hear the sensory deprivation chamber? Did you ever hear that?
Yeah, right?
You can go try it.
Pardon?
People enjoy it. You can go try it. Like,
oh, I'm not sure everyone enjoys it.
You don't feel anything.
No, I think sensory deprivation, I think you start with hallucination. I think you start hallucinating. I've heard you start hallucinating sensual objects, right? So, yeah, I mean, maybe it is fun. Maybe. I just don't remember. We don't. But then birth itself, you know, it's like, whoa, coming out, and your skin is so sensitive, and it's just hard. I mean, you know, and the first thing they do with you is take you upside down and hit you on the bump behind. So you start screaming. Okay, it's good for your lungs, but you start your life screaming. And it's very painful for the mother. And then you grow up, you know. Then you experience the suffering of being born, which is not associated with bliss, right? So, and then you grow up. I mean, growing up is difficult. Of course, if you're lucky, the circumstances are all okay. But, you know, there's room for improvement. First, there's teething pain, there's growing pain. Then, first, you're with your parents, you may feel very protected if things go really okay. Maybe your parents get divorced, or, you know, there's pain, there's definitely pain, there are problems, there are worries. I remember extreme, profound fear when my parents didn't come home on time. Oh my God, I was so petrified. I didn't know. They were just a little late. I didn't have the reasoning capacity to think, oh, probably nothing. I'd heard, like, my cousins, well, I knew that my cousins had lost their mom when they were still very young. So I knew this was a possibility. You can lose your mom when you're only 5 years old. I was so scared. No one could guarantee me this was not going to happen to my parents, right? So I was so scared when I didn't come on time. So I remember these fears. They were terrible. One time my mom was on a vacation. My dad came home. He was with his buddies. I didn't sleep all night long. I didn't sleep the whole night. I remember this. My dad had drunk too much, so he was with his friends, and he came early at 5. He wanted me to notice. I was outside of the building. When I was like so scared. I was crying. I called my uncle in the middle of the night, but he didn't pick up the phone. I remember that. And at first I was like, oh my God, Dad, how dare you? Because I'd screamed at him. I was only like 7 or 8. I remember that night, like every moment of it. So it's just fear. It's a profound fear. I experienced that. And there were other times, you know, when you enter school, the first time of school, it's traumatic. You know, and then at school, children may bully you, you know, you experience other worries, and so many worries. I mean, this is just life. Let's just look at it. I mean, we may just ignore it and pretend it's not there, but then we never do anything to change it. So then, aging, you grow older, you know, oh my God, puberty, hormones. This is not my favorite time, being a teenager, you know, in high school, and peer pressure, and this pressure, and that pressure, and you don't know who you are, you don't know who you're going to be. Then you have all these pimples on top of everything else, and suddenly your body changes in ways in which you really don't want it to change. And then there's fashion, and then there's more peer pressure, and, you know, if you don't drink, you're not cool. I actually practiced smoking when I was 13. I practiced it, because everyone smoked, so I practiced it. It was so hard, you know, until finally I got used to it, thanks God. But, you know, I mean, I'm not sure this happens in Israel, but Israel, I'm sure, has its own high school kind of joys. So that, and then finally you're done. I mean, besides all the hard work and the study and all that, you know, which you may enjoy or you may not, it depends on what it is. And then you finally make it, and what's the next step? Fear of the future. Can't decide what you're going to do. If you can decide, you're feeling, oh my God, that's it, right? Or like you do what I did, like I want to see the world, but I'm so scared of traveling. So anyway, so there's so many fears. If you think back, so many worries, etc. And then you're finally over hormones and puberty, and then wrinkles start. Thank you very much. You know, the first wrinkle. No, they don't start at that age, but still, new worries arise. What job are you gonna marry this guy or not? Or, you know, are you gonna have children or not? I mean, there's constant worries, right? And then what else? And then aging. Okay, so when does it start? When I discover my first wrinkle? Around beginning 30, I guess, right? And previously I could put my foot behind my ear, and suddenly I can't do that any longer, you know, or I'm exhausted quickly, or, you know, things that I can't do any longer, etc. And then it goes from there. More wrinkles, body changes more, you know, maybe previously people look at you at the street and think you're pretty or something, or like as a guy, you know, and then suddenly that changes, okay? And you're married and you have a partner, but then your relationship changes, he leaves you, she leaves you, your children, you know, there's this worry, you have to look after yourself, but now you worry about your children, And you grow older and older, and new problems arise. So, and then you die. Right? So, let's face it. Life is full of problems, just ordinary problems. And those are not even the serious problems. That is like leaving aside really serious problems of disease, of great worry, of losing a loved one, of fearing yourself, losing everything, losing your job, losing your house, being in an earthquake, being in a war, etc. Right? All of the problems that we experience. So that's life. Okay? But okay. At least we have happiness. We have happy experiences, right? But they don't last. They don't last. That's the problem, right? In fact, whatever gives us the happiness, if we stay too long with the object, the happiness starts to become a problem. We have a sense there are things that really give me happiness. I don't know, doing things like with my friends that really give me happiness. So, but if that was really giving me happiness, the more I were with my friend, the happier I would get. But actually, if I make a point, I'm only with my friends, oh my God, a week, 10 days, a month, if you lock me up with my friends, oh, it's going to be suffering. Okay, then I go to the beach. All right, let's go to the beach. I feel really happy when I'm at the ocean, I'm at the beach. So I'm there for an hour. Oh, I love it. 2 hours, 3 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours. Oh my God. I don't want to hear the ocean any longer. So the point is like whatever gives us happiness for some time, inevitably, unless we change the object, it will turn into suffering. So even the objects that we believe can give us happiness can't really give us happiness. And you know what the Buddha claims? The Buddha says that what we call happiness is actually not happiness. It's just a relief from a problem. It's really just a relief from suffering. The Buddha claims, and let's see, maybe he's totally wrong about it. Maybe your life is so wonderful, there's really nothing wrong, and whatever you do, the happiness just gets greater. Or maybe it's true that our states of happiness are just a relief. It's a bit like, I like the example that one of my teachers once gave. It's like, if you say actual happiness is 24 degrees. I know from my last course, I asked what is the most comfortable temperature, and in Germany it's 22 degrees, but in Israel I hear it's 24 degrees, right? Room temperature, comfortable temperature. Okay, 24 degrees. Now, for us right now, what we experience is -10, that's suffering. 0 degree would be like a neutral feeling, neither suffering nor happiness, and happiness is, let's say, 10 degree plus. It's still cold, actually, but because it's no longer -10, we experience the +10 as warmth. Oh, it's hot. Oh my God, this is summer. But actually, it's still not the temperature that we need to keep healthy, to keep, really reasonably warm without having to do anything. But it's like our happiness is similar to that. What we call happiness, the Buddha says, is actually not real happiness yet. If you were to talk to a Buddha or a liberated being, they would scoff at our happiness. Happiness? It's ridiculous. What you're experiencing, they call it happiness? Oh, it's a bit like saying, +10 degree, you're hot? Ooh, that's ridiculous, right? That's comfortable temperature? No. It's only because right now you don't experience -10 degree. I know about this in Germany. After a winter, after -10 degree, the first day it's 10 degree, you take out your shirts, your t-shirts, you're out there. It's ridiculous, it's still cold. But because you don't know any better, you're so used to something greater, it feels like really hot. But actually, what our mind can experience, the kind of happiness it can experience, we haven't even scratched the surface. It can experience, our mind totally can. Right now, we deprive our mind from experiencing a type of happiness. We have no inkling of it. Why? Because we want our 10 degree. We are very satisfied with our 10 degree. The problem is we don't always get the 10 degree plus. We go from -10, 0, plus, +9, +5, plus, but we don't want anything more. So we don't remove the causes that are responsible for us to actually have that are responsible for us to be trapped in that -10 and +10 kind of range of temperature. Right? Our mind right now, because there are causes, and I'm going to talk about those causes in a minute, but our mind cannot experience greater temperature, greater happiness, because we're right now restricted by our own attachment, jealousy, anger, etc., caused by our fundamental misperception of reality. Right? Okay, so that's what the Buddha claims. And he talks about these 10 degrees, 10 and 0 and +10 degrees, by describing 3 types of suffering. Suffering of change, he talks about suffering we have, and I just described this to you, suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. And there's so much more. The suffering of encountering that which is unpleasant, and the suffering of being separated from that which is pleasant. The suffering of not getting what we want. The suffering of uncertainty. Anything can happen anytime. The suffering of never really being satisfied. We get one thing, we're satisfied for a few moments, and we need something more. We're never really satisfied. We think we're going to be satisfied. Once we get this partner, once we're going to do this, and then we get it, and we want something else. So the suffering of never being satisfied. The suffering of having to die again and again. Again and again we have to die. If there's really future lives, let's assume there are. If there are, we have to die again and again. We have to be reborn again and again. The suffering of going up and down. Great things happen to us, and then we fall down again. And then something great happens, and we fall down again. And the suffering of having to do it all alone, basically. Because when we're born, no one comes, well, unless we have a twin with us, but they're also busy kind of bearing their own pain as we were born. And when you die, you have to die alone, right? Basically we have to, and no one experiences our problems, our suffering. We can explain others to a degree what we go through, but in the end, we have to go through it on our own. So those are different types of what are called suffering of suffering. Those are the -10 degree. But then there's even our happiness is limited, because it's not real happiness. It is not the 24 degrees. It is limited. Well, first of all, what's the problem with it? It depends on other objects. It depends on something other than ourselves. It depends on certain foods, on material goods, on friendships. We depend on things that are very unreliable, right? For our happiness. We depend for our happiness on friendships. Other people are not reliable, and we know that. People change, relationships change. We are depending on a house which is changing all the time and will not always be around. So there's always change. So we're depending on things that are totally unreliable, external things. And even if these things stay long enough around, if we are around them too much, it turns into suffering. If we eat food, we eat too much, we start suffering. Certain drinks, we drink too much, we start suffering. A friend, we around this friend too much, we start suffering. A movie, we watch too much, we start suffering. So not only are these objects very unreliable, because they could change any time, even if they don't, well, we get fed up of them. So, therefore, even our happiness, it's called the suffering of change. Because whatever happiness there is, inevitably it will change into something else. Unless we hop to the next object. We change the object to feel something, again, relieve our mind from boredom or frustration, whatever. And so we need to move on all the time. We can never really be still. Because when we have to shower, we have to sleep, we have to eat, we have to drink, we have to meet people like this. We can never be in one place, because all day long, we're slaves of our own needs, basically. Right? Okay. Then, the last type of suffering is called pervasive conditioned suffering, which means, in short, the reason why we have suffering of suffering, we have -10 degree, plus we have +10 degree, very limited happiness, comes down to the basis based on which we experience. We have those experiences. This present mind and body. This present mind and body basically is in the nature of suffering, because actually this mind and body always experiences a type of suffering. Either it has the potential for really great suffering, or there's always a problem. If you think about it, for example, our body, we may think, no, right now I'm very happy, my body is really well, there's nothing wrong with my body. But actually just having this body, I mean, this body, it's heavy, right? It's a heavy body. It's not very, you have to always watch out that you don't break something, you can't sit for too long. This body is a burden. Seriously. I mean, I make you sit for 4 hours and you really know what a burden this is. I mean, I sometimes say this jokingly. If I were to take a picture of us in this hall and I were to fast it forward, I cannot sit in just one position because this body will create pain. We feel clean and smell good. Well, thanks for soap and water every day. Because if we left this body just on its own, it starts smelling. Why doesn't it just produce flower smells? Right? Why? Wouldn't it be lovely to have a body but it's in the nature of getting smelly. I mean, we have to take care of it all the time. We have to spend so much time washing it, cleaning it, doing this, doing that, in order to keep healthy. I mean, to keep clean. I mean, healthy and clean. So to say this is a wonderful, pure body, So the Buddha said it's actually in the nature of suffering because it's uncomfortable having it. We need to constantly spend time with it, time and energy, feed it. And how many times do we have to feed? How many times a day? If we only had to eat once, okay. But you have to feed it how many times a day? It's expensive to feed it in a good way, right? Organic food is expensive. And then you lay there for 8 hours every day not doing anything. Right? Sleep, how bizarre it is. Have you ever thought about how bizarre that we have to sleep that much? Wow, if we didn't have to sleep that much, right? Yeah, it's kind of a way. We could do so much.
You don't like to sleep?
Pardon?
You don't like sleeping?
I love sleeping because I need it.
Why wouldn't I want to sleep?
Well, you wouldn't want to sleep, but if you didn't have to sleep, if you could choose, from now on, I'll never be tired. I'll always have the energy, right? But somehow the earth would also be different that we live on, so it'd be more daylight. And we would only have to sleep 1 hour a day. The happiness I experience, I still experience when I fall asleep. Oh, I'll have my hour of sleep. And then I wake up and wow. Wouldn't that be nice? How much we could do. We don't need that much vacation. I just work, I don't know how many hours, and then I take half a year off. Because I've done how many hours I need to do. See, I mean, we never think about it. We just, but our body is really limited. I'm only talking about this because the Buddha says we don't need to have such a body. There's a way out of having such a body. Right? So, we don't need to accept it. This body is just a symptom of something. But think about this. We're slaves to a mass that smelts after a very short time. Right? The stuff inside, these organs, they're so vulnerable. I mean, they're so complicated. Of course, it's amazing how complicated, but they're also very, very sensitive. It needs a bug this big, to throw you off your feet. We're so fragile. I mean, really, let's think about it. What kind of body is that? It's really we're so attached to it. Yeah. But the little dog is very attached to its doggy body. And I don't think anyone would say a doggy body is wonderful. Right? The smelly kind of doggy body. In India, there are quite a few doggy bodies that are quite smelly. No one to give you a bath or something. So, I mean, but this dog is very attached to this body. Likewise, we're very attached to this body, but actually, it's messy. It's smelly, and it gives us a lot of trouble. It's very vulnerable, very fragile. Yeah? And we need to spend a lot of money and time to look after it the way we do. And if we ever lost that ability, well, we'd be in trouble. Okay, very uncomfortable. And then there's our mind. How little control do we have over our mind? Sometimes we do, but other times suddenly, I don't know, do you know bad mood days? You wake up and without any reason you feel trashy. That's so frustrating. You feel bad. It's so frustrating. So there's really no control. When you feel bad, you suddenly get depressed. Maybe there are hormones in your body, that changes, and you feel unhappy. You feel crappy. Okay? Or you feel crappy because you get sick. So our mind is very much dependent on the body, or whatever happens to our body influences our mind. It's really difficult. So the Buddha says that really, actually, our mind and body are a type of suffering. They're a burden right now, our present mind and body. Okay, so don't worry, there's a way of overcoming this. It's not like if there was no way out of it, the Buddha would have never mentioned, why talk about crap when they can't remove the crap, right? Just accept it. But the Buddha says, no. Recognize that your mind and body are limited. They are limited. But there's a way in which you can change that. You can change that. You can transform your mind. You can transform your body. Because there are causes that are responsible for this present mind and body. And all we need to do is remove the causes. So I've just introduced you to the truth of suffering. Right? So it's not about being pessimistic here. Some people feel sometimes when they hear the first truth, oh, why are Buddha so pessimistic? Well, is it pessimistic or realistic? Is this a fact or not? Am I just making things up? Or is this really our situation right now? And again, if it's our situation and we cannot change it, we should not think about it. No, we can't change it, let's just accept it. But if we can change it, well, let's first recognize it. It's like when you have a symptom, you have certain symptoms that have an underlying cause. So when you go to a doctor, he may ask you, well, look at your symptoms. Do you have such and such symptoms? Some of those symptoms you're aware of. And you go, yes, actually, yes, I do. Oh, yeah, I wasn't really thinking about them, but I do. And he says, well, there's a few symptoms you also experience. You just weren't aware they're symptoms. And he mentions a few more. And you go, whoa, yeah, actually, yeah, oh my God. And he tells you, don't worry. There's a cause for it. There's a cause. Okay, what is the cause? He tells you the cause. And then he tells you, good news, you can get rid of those causes and therefore get rid of the symptoms by taking this treatment. Right? So likewise the Buddha said, there's a truth of suffering. But don't worry. He tells us a few things that we're aware of to a degree that we forget every now and then, but certain things we are very aware of. Other things we weren't aware of, but then he introduces those too. And then he said, well, there's a cause of those. There's a cause. We created this mind and body. We ourselves didn't. So we are the ones who can undo it. So undoing it means, so the second truth is the truth of the origin. The third truth is the truth of cessation. It's possible to get rid of the causes. And how do you do it? By way of doing the treatment. That is the truth of the path. So those are the Four Noble Truths, which are described in here. Okay, so let's look at the causes, because they're most important. What are the causes of our situation? Why? How did we get such a body and such a mind? Well, the fundamental underlying cause for having this mind and body is our misperception of reality. Okay? Our misperception of reality, which refers, and I've already mentioned a few of our misperceptions. The misperception of thinking there is something intrinsic within phenomena. Some intrinsicness, some intrinsic, I spoke of racism, I spoke of different situations. There's a sense there's an objective world out there. There's a sense there's an objective world out there, and this is, I'll just happen to walk into this world, into this room, and wherever I am, I see exactly what's there. There's an innate sense that this is how phenomena really exist. Now, I'm not saying the phenomena we perceive don't exist, but they don't exist as objective, independent phenomena over there. We had this discussion briefly yesterday about how we perceive colors and sounds that actually don't exist out there, but it feels as if they exist out there. There's a lot of things we don't perceive, and we think that all there is what we perceive. Again, that's a fundamental mistake. With regard to other people, we have a sense there's some kind of person, some kind of essence of that person. So when someone harms us, what do we get angry with? What do we get angry with? Do you ever get angry with the mind of a person or a body of a person? Or do you get angry with some kind of something different, other than mind and body, something there that you get angry with? Just ask yourself, when you're angry with someone, last time you were angry with someone, were you angry with a different type, like one of their consciousnesses or their awarenesses? Have you ever been angry with an awareness? No, right? Have you ever been angry with a part of the body, maybe an ear or a nose or a mouth? No, right? So when we're angry with, there seems to be something other, some essence there, you know, something to be angry